so good, especially if you have kids at Christmas, to come into these spaces and have peace to sing. I actually got the best peace yesterday. I took John to see SpongeBob SquarePants. And as soon as the movie turned on, I did this. And I think I woke up as the dumb ending was whatever was happening at the very end. Don't tell John that. He kept on saying, "Dad, isn't that funny?" And I was like, yeah, it's really funny. Anyway, to step in and to be able to worship with focus and peace is beautiful. 2025. We're about to exit 2025 and enter the sci-fi year of 2026. This is maybe just for people my age and up. You youngsters don't, but these years all sound like science fiction, don't they? 2026. Do you remember 2001, A Space Odyssey? There's a few of us nodding. Carrie, you don't. You're too young. And does anyone remember, now I don't know if this made it here, does anyone remember Buck Rogers and the 21st Century? Yes, so it did make it here, did it? Does anyone else? Yeah, Buck Rogers, and they all had those droids that followed them around. We still don't have those yet. So 2026 sounds like sci-fi, and all the young ones are going, no, it doesn't. It does. It's total sci-fi. But we're closing out, regardless, we're closing out one year, and we're looking ahead to another year of fear, maybe, another year of worry, or another year of possibility. This arbitrary time in the year when we can have this restart, when we can think of all things new. God, please do this in me or around me this year. It's a really important time of year to grapple with these big questions. And I hope what we do tonight is I hope that we leave with the ability to lay a burden down as we enter this year. But I also hope that we leave encouraged, given courage to face this year with power and with authority. And this is why. This Advent, one of my daily readings, as it always is in Advent, was John 1. And I'm going to read John 1 to you here. It's going to come up on the screens. But something abnormal, possibly for the first time in my life, there's one line that really stood out to me in this. I'm just going to read it and just let God speak to you through it. So John 1, 1-9. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. Normally, this passage speaks to me like that image. It speaks to me of the awesome reality of Jesus, this baby who came as a man and who lived generously and sacrificially, and who described himself as humble and gentle at heart. That's how Jesus described himself. And yet, this humble and gentle at heart man was actually, as we just heard, the God who created and sustains, who keeps the universe going. The man, Jesus, who taught and who healed and who fed on the hills of Galilee and Judea, actually spoke those very hills into existence. Imagine that. I'm standing on something that I just, and it became. The one who stood on them, the one who taught, spoke them into existence. And he could have just as easily spoken them out of existence. That power that we just heard of, that we see in that image of the Milky Way, that power that we hear about and we see was carried in the tiny frame of a baby. A baby who whispered and the world came to be. And imagine on that day being those people looking at this tiny, looking helpless, totally needing cared for baby, and yet that baby is the only being in the universe totally deserving of their fear and their awe. If they looked up into the night sky, into the eyes of the baby, I wonder if they caught the reality of that moment. It's beautiful and it's powerful. The start of John's gospel sets the entirety of the human story in the life of Jesus in this much greater cosmic reality that he was the one that spoke it all into being. And that's what I normally get when I read John 1. But that's not what hit me between the eyes just about 2 weeks ago as I was reading it for the, 100th, 150th time. What struck me so powerfully was this line. That's it. What struck me so powerfully was this. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. Read that and contemplate that line for a moment. What really hit me as I read that and that line jumped out to me for maybe the first time is this reality that we all forget. No, it's okay. Stick it back up. It's not about us. I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I am not the light. Jesus is the light. You are not the light. We want to be. We feel we need to be, but I'm not the light. You're not the light. Jesus is the light. And this amazing and broken and hurting and insecure world and all the people around you, the thing that stood out to me is they don't actually need me, but they desperately need Jesus. People don't need me to be amazing. They don't need me to have it all together. They don't need me to say things perfectly, to have the right answer for them, the right comfort for them. They don't need me to do those things. But what they desperately need is to know and to meet Jesus. I totally get that wrong all the time. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And my prayer, as this has been rolling around my head for the last several weeks, is that will help you lay down a huge load of expectation for yourself. But at the same time, that will actually give you courage to enter 2026. Because the reality is, it's not about us, it's not about me, means you don't have to take yourself too seriously. I got to arrive ready for the situation. I got to arrive ready to answer these questions because it's about me. It's not about you. You don't have to take yourself too seriously. But we know God does want us to be involved. Matthew 25, Jesus strongly tells us that what you do or what you don't do to the very least of these, the least, last, and the lost, is what you do or don't do to him. Our actions do have consequences, and our actions are the way we worship. How we sacrifice and how we serve is how we worship. But ultimately, how we sacrifice or how we serve or how we answer or how we show up is not what is going to meet these people's needs. In 1 Peter 5, I love that Peter lets us off the hook and he says, just always be ready to give a reason for the hope that you have. You don't need to show up with all the bells and whistles. Just be ready to give a reason for the hope that you have. We're constantly surrounded by people who are beautifully, giftedly made in the image of God. We're constantly surrounded by image bearers. But we're also constantly surrounded by these people who are insecure, who are worried, who are anxious, who lack hope, who lack joy. And we're constantly surrounded by a people in a world more and more divided, more and more lonely, more and more purposeless, more and more anxious. Anxiety, as we know, is the word of 2025. Image bearers living in anxiety. But peace is the opposite of anxiety. I can't offer peace, but there is peace carried in the Prince of Peace. And there are many things presented to us as hope in our world. Green technology will save our dying planet. This may be a laugh. Government financial plans will save our broken economy. The next technological advancement will make us all healthy, wealthy, and happy. I've talked to you before. I listen to the Diary of a CEO regularly, and there was one world-renowned tech leader on it. And he actually said that the only hope for the world is to give all our decision-making control over to AI. My mic's jumping around. We'll just leave that. Our only hope for the world is to give all our decision-making control over to AI. And he said, because the problem is not the machines, the problem is humanity. This is a world-renowned, influential tech leader. This is how hopeless and depressing our society, our reality is. And the only way this won't stress you out or overwhelm you and me is to remember it's not about us. You and I are not the hope of the world, but we do carry and point to, just like John the Baptist, the only hope the world has. And it's not about you also means that even when you are weak, he is strong, and this should give you courage. In fact, it's especially when we have fears and failures and weaknesses that we can most beautifully and most powerfully, humbly point people to the light of the world. Jesus said to Paul, and he quotes it in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness." I was going to say, I know we know this, but I don't think we do know this. I know it, but I don't know it. I don't get it. I absolutely don't need to show the world that I have it all together. I don't need to show the world that my life is better than theirs. But I desperately need to show the world that I have found forgiveness for my failures. I have found peace for my storms. I have found hope in hard times. I have found light in the darkness. I have found the things that you desperately need. Because for none of us will life always go well, and going well doesn't last. And your friends don't need you to tell them that this will be over, and they don't need you to encourage them when life is going well. They need you to point them to what matters when life isn't going well. I've seen this so profoundly in the last year as Karen and I and various ones of us have walked through people in their darkest times. As we've sat through funeral after funeral with people when they've lost everything, the reality is that knowing the King of Kings and Lord of Lords makes all the difference in the world. It's not cliche when people have nothing else to hold on to. It makes all the difference in the world. Karen spoke here and preached this so profoundly at Don McNamara's funeral in a room full of people who knew Jesus and many who didn't. And her words to the group were this: God sees you, God comforts you, and God gives you hope. God sees you. God comforts you, and God gives you hope. The ultimate hope for the people in the room was not how well Karen spoke or how well her or I or someone else sat beside them, but knowing that their Father, who can do something about their eternity, is sitting with them, is hearing them, and who is bringing and can bring eternal hope to them. We want to believe, maybe because of our insecurities or our arrogance, that our presence is the most important thing in the room. And don't neglect that your presence is really important in the room. Sometimes your presence is so much more important than your words. But what's more important in the room is that you're pointing them to the one in whom you have hope. And I think this is so important because it takes the pressure off. I don't know what to say in those rooms all the time. I don't know what to be in those rooms all the time. I don't know where to sit or where not to sit. But if I sit in that room knowing that I carry the light in the darkness, and gently and humbly and graciously point to the light in the darkness, I know that my God is watching. I know that my God sees. I know that my God comforts. And I know that my God can give hope. The end of this passage is such a powerful reminder to keep going back to again and again. It's not going to come up, but let me read it again. John sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. Paul himself is not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. And to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. You are not the light. You only point to the light. So what are some takeaways for 2026 for us? When you're with your friends or your family or your work colleagues, do you go in carrying a burden that I have to do this or I have to do that? I have to say things right. And if I don't say things right, they won't know. Well, can we wake up every morning laying that weight and the weight of the world at Jesus' feet where it belongs? What do you feel like you're carrying? And what do you know that you can't carry? What do you feel like you're carrying going into 2026? And what do you know that you can't carry? Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon you, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." And here's a second takeaway for us. Jesus is calling us to live honestly and vulnerably in the lives of the people we see every day. His grace is sufficient for you. I was going to say the people around you need to see that you're just like them, and to a certain extent that's true. We need to show that we also, though, need to show that Jesus has transformed our lives, but the people around us need to see that we need Jesus just as much as they need Jesus. No one needs to be patronized into salvation, into Christ. No one needs to be told, "Wow, your life looks like a real mess. I can point you to the one that can solve it, because so it become more like my life." Instead, we will irresistibly draw people to ourselves if we say something more like, "I see you're struggling. And you know, I've struggled through that too." Or, "Do you know, I'm right in the middle. I keep on falling back into that same rut. But can I show you the hope I have found along the way? Can I show you the forgiveness I have found along the way? Can I show you the peace I have found along the way?" Live honestly and vulnerably. That's probably the thing that needs the most courage to do. The good news of Christmas and the whole story of the Bible is not about us. I'm not Jesus, you're not Jesus. John the Baptist actually said the good news that we carry is from the one whose sandals I am unworthy to untie. There's a good humility to put in front of your friends. I don't have it all together. In fact, the one who will solve your problems, I am unworthy to untie his sandals. But that reality means we can leave the job with him and walk humbly and courageously into 2026. I am not the light. I am simply a witness to tell about the light. Let me pray. Lord, you know what we carry. You know the people we face. You know our worries. You know our insecurities. You know, as Lorna said at the start, you know where we feel we failed this week for the 100th time. So remind us today of the beautiful message that we, in fact, are not the light of the world. We only point to the light. And I pray, Holy Spirit, for the burdens that we hold, that you will show them to us plainly and help us to lay them down at your feet. And I pray against the pride that we hold, thinking that we have to be the thing we're pointing to. God, I pray for the courage to live vulnerably and humbly. As people who desperately need the light again and again and again. Yeah, you are the king. We are not. You are the hope of the world. And amazingly, you just asked us to come along for the ride and join you in this journey and point toward the light. Help us, I pray, in Jesus' holy and awesome name.